What's going on, Bulls Nation? And welcome in to the CHGO Bulls podcast, presented to you by PointsBet. Don't forget that promo code CHGO when you sign up to live your bet life. I'm Matt. You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_Beck. Right over there, that's Will the Goat Gottlieb. He's at Won't Twitter. At Won't Gottlieb on Twitter. He does Twitter all the time.
I should change my Twitter handle to Won't Twitter.
Is that foul BWL Sports and making his CHGO debut, y'all. It's our guy Darnell Mayberry, senior Bulls writer for The Athletic. Darnell, welcome to the new platform, man. How you been?
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. I'm doing well. Congratulations to all you guys on this, man. I'm happy for you.
Appreciate that, man.
Appreciate it, Darnell.
All right, well, so let's start with the good, and then we can kind of rehash the bad, and then talk about the Bucks playoff series coming up. What did you think about the performances we saw from Pat Williams and Ayo Dosunmu last night? Let's start with Pat. Obviously, the biggest offensive role he's played all season long, career-high 35, as we were talking about last night. It wasn't just that he was scoring, but doing so in a lot of ways, and even in particular, finally asserting himself a little bit and getting to the free throw line a lot. What did you think about the night we saw from Patrick?
Can I be honest with y'all?
Sure.
Please. It disappointed me because we know he can do this. Like, it was good to see, but we know he can do this. We know that it's in him. Why does it take everyone being out of the lineup for you to show it? So that's the part that was frustrating to me. And he even said after the game, the coaches and his teammates have told him 2 seasons now, be aggressive. We've all talked about it. We've all written it. And it's like he only does it when he's in a summer league setting or when everyone's out of the lineup. And he's just got to be better than that. I mean, after 2 years, and yes, he's missed a lot of times this season, but you want to see more. And that's been the biggest frustration that I've had with Patrick Williams all season.
I think for me, and we talked about it last night, is, to your point, Darnell, like he basically has to be told you have to go out there and be aggressive in order for our team to win. And having that mentality of, I know what I need to do in order to help my team win, which is being a threat and not just being passive, floating around on the perimeter, because his defense is not quite as developed, I think, as most people would think or would like. And so you're exactly right that he needs to just have this mentality, whether he's getting his 21 shots or not, that he's at least going to be a threat out there. And that from Billy last night was the big takeaway that I had.
Darnell, how much of it do you think it plays into it that he's honestly just not used to being that kind of guy? Like coming out of college, being that 6th man, not being asked to be that dude to come in, be aggressive, run the offense and do things like that. Now being a number 4 pick, being asked to kind of do those things. Do you think that kind of plays into it? And is this something he's growing into?
You could say that, but Dave, who doesn't want to shoot the ball? You know what I mean? Like
Jason Kidd.
Ben Simmons.
Jason Kidd is like the only guy. That was a good point. It's unheard of almost, man. Everyone wants to shoot the ball, or Ben Simmons is another one, I guess.
Ben Simmons, yes.
But the basic things that we've tried to say, the media said it to him, the coaches, the teammates, fans. I'm sure he's all over social media and he sees the reactions. There's never an excuse for Pat Williams to have 0 shots in a game, which he did a couple weeks ago. He only played 13 minutes, but there's no excuse to only have 13 minutes by Billy Donovan and then to take 0 shots. So I hate to be a Debbie Downer, Matt, and I'm not even answering your original question. It was good. It was a good sign to see him show that he can do that in the NBA, regardless of who wasn't on the floor. But I'd like to see it more often. And that's where I am with Patrick Williams. Going into his 3rd season, we can't keep talking about the same thing next year.
Well, I mean, but what do you give him a little bit of a break, considering you say going into your 3rd season, he missed the entirety of his 2nd season, 5 games out of the gate and, a handful of games here. Not to say that it's a full excuse, but this year 2 is when we were hoping we were going to see a solid step of development from Pat, assuming that he was, keeping that role as the starting 4 on this team. And he just wiped away an entire season of development. And again, he's still young. There's plenty of time ahead of him in his NBA career to take those steps. I do agree that at some point when do we hear, well, yeah, my teammates keep telling me, my coaching staff keeps telling me I got to assert myself. And instead of hearing that kind of talk, he just goes out and does it. But again, he missed 90% of this season.
It's also that the season finale was his 12th game back. And I look at his old, he didn't play with him, but Scotty Barnes, who also went to Florida State. We're not talking about that. When the Bulls played up in Toronto early this season, and we saw Scotty Barnes give them the business, we're saying, why can't, I'm using this loosely, why can't, there's the voice of the fans, why can't our number 4 overall pick do that? It's a mentality thing for me, Matt. You can't be counted on to be one of the faces of, not the faces of the, one of the pillars of this franchise and moving forward and have such passivity on offense for sure. And as Will pointed out, it's not like he's elite defensively. He's got a lot of promise, but going into his 3rd season, like this cannot continue to be a talking point. This can't be the narrative on Patrick Williams moving forward.
So let me ask you this then, Darnell. Covering him now in his 2nd season and being around him last year, is this something that you've at least seen, like the trend upwards of him starting to understand that he needs to be more aggressive? Or is this just like, because we talked about it a lot with Wendell over the years of, maybe he's just kind of a passive dude. And I think Kobe in moments especially when his shot is not falling, kind of shies away from continuing to get shots up. Do you think that this is something that Pat is able to work on and improve on, or is this just kind of who he is and something that he's going to struggle with throughout his career?
I do think that the team has some responsibility in this because you have DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, who are the focal points, obviously. And then after that, they want Vooch to get the ball. So if you're Patrick Williams, if you're Kobe White, Javonte Green is shooting it well from 3, but they have been told to not shoot certain shots and to basically get the stars the ball. So if that's the role player's message from the coaching staff, that's where I give Matt, that's where I give Patrick a pass a little bit, is because he's going out there and basically trying to execute what the coaching staff is telling him to do. Where I stop giving him a pass is if you're a player, if you have dog in you, however you want to put it, what the coaches tell you. If you know you're capable of doing something, you're going to go out there and do it, especially if you know it's going to help the team. So I'm done talking about Patrick Williams. I'm not trying to kill the guy. I'm actually one of his biggest fans. I said at the deadline, the Bulls should not. I said the Bulls should not trade him. I said that a couple of times, that the Bulls should not trade him. And so I'm a believer in Patrick Williams. I just don't like the fact that it takes the circumstances that we saw last night to have this effort out of him.
That's fair. I think it's totally fair.
For me. But go ahead,
man. But like, I also agree with your point that, like, look, how assertive can you be when you're the 4th or even 5th option offensively every time down the floor if you are playing with Zach, DeMar, and Vooch? We'll see. I mean, again, I also think that just because you are soft-spoken, somebody like the Paw, who doesn't show a whole lot of emotional outwardly on a basketball court, doesn't mean you can't be a killer. I think that's I'm not giving up on the fact that P-Dub might have that killer instinct. He's just waiting for his opportunity to fully display it on a nightly basis, because he certainly doesn't show it outwardly as far as his emotion on the floor. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist and is lurking down there waiting to come out at some point. Okay, you're done talking about the Paw, so then let's talk about Ayo real quick. Career high night for him as well last night. Did have a big old turnover number. I believe he had 7 turnovers. Knocked down a big 3 late in the game to kind of put this one away for the Bulls. Do you look at the rookie wall that he's hit? Maybe it's a combination of that and the fact that opponents have some scouting tape on Ayo from the first half of the season. What have you made of Ayo's sort of slump here in the final 15 to 20 games of the season? And even with that, would you still call his rookie year a success?
Oh, it's definitely a success. But I think Ayo's season sort of mirrors the Bulls. If you think about it, I mean, they got off to a hot start. He got off to a hot start. They slumped. He slumped. And maybe it was to be expected on both sides. I mean, the Bulls, as Billy has said, they weren't as good as they were when they were on that 9-game winning streak. They're probably not as bad as they are now. Ayo was playing well over his head. I think we could all agree. And now he's kind of come back to the mean. And so I don't look at it as, oh, alarm bells are going off because Ayo is quote unquote slumping. I mean, he's a rookie second round draft pick who has played a ton of minutes this season. He said that he hasn't hit the rookie wall. He said he felt good. Every time I've asked him, he said he felt good. So I just think it is probably a correlation to teams scouting him a little bit, the long season, and then players being in and out of the lineup, the Bulls having to rely on him so much. Probably all of those things have contributed to him having a down finish to the season.
Like being around Ayo as you are, what's the one thing or maybe multiple things that kind of stand out to you and just impress you when you look at him and how he maybe approaches the game or how he even approaches life? Like what kind of impresses you the most about Ayo when you see him?
I'd probably echo what Billy Donovan has said. It seems like no matter what's thrown at him, he embraces it. And generally he excels in the role that is being asked of him. He's not an elite point guard. He's not an elite defender, but he goes out there and he's going to give you what he has and try to play mistake-free basketball. What he's doing with a purpose. He's not just going out there making dumb decisions and you're like, what is he doing? We got to get him off the floor. So I think just the fact that he's embraced every role that he's been thrown, that's been thrown at him. He's embraced all the responsibilities that he's had to take on. And it's given him a lot of great experience that he's going to be able to use going forward in his second season and moving forward.
I don't want to get maybe too far ahead of ourselves here, but for both those guys, Pat and Ayo, where do you think they fit into the playoff rotation? As we all kind of know, and I'm sure you have even more experiences covering Billy down in OKC. These playoff rotations shrink, and I think just with the depth that this team has right now, or lack thereof, both those guys are going to have to play heavy minutes. But you also wonder maybe how reliable those guys will be, given that they just don't have that kind of experience.
Yeah, it's going to be an eye-opening experience for both of them, I imagine. But Billy said something the other day that kind of raised my eyebrows. He said that in the playoffs, his philosophy at least is playing as many two-way players as he possibly can. And those two guys, I mean, you can say what you want about their weaknesses and what they're still trying to improve on, but they are two of the better two-way players that this Bulls team has. So they're going to have to rely on both Ayo and Patrick Williams in the playoffs. I mean, Patrick Williams is about to be out there guarding Giannis. And that's going to be interesting and a really good experience for him. I think they're probably going to rely on Caruso a little bit for that too. And unfortunately, Tristan Thompson, Javonte Green will get some, but I anticipate seeing Patrick Williams out there a lot on Giannis.
Are you worried at all about minutes with them? I know Ayo has played a ton of minutes throughout the year. Pat, I think, played almost 40 last night, but he was heaving hands on his knees there at the end, and he even said at postgame that he was fighting fatigue. Are you worried at all about how their minutes are going to shake out in terms of, just having the energy out there?
No, I think it's going to be a learning experience for them. Just the playoff intensity, having their wind, and look, I've never played in a playoff game, but they never played in any game. But just from talking,
I was waiting for that one.
just to be clear. So just from talking to these guys throughout the years, man, I mean, there is a different level, and that they're going to have to adjust and acclimate to the playoff intensity and getting their win. But I don't know if they're going to play enough minutes. Maybe Pat is, but I don't know about Ayo because you got the backcourt guys other than Lonzo still available. But I do think Pat will play a lot of minutes, and he's just going to have to adjust to the intensity of it, I think, more than anything.
All right, we're going to keep chatting here with our guy Darnell Mayberry of The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at Darnell Mayberry. We'll touch a bit more on the Bulls' late season LeMays and the playoff series with the Bucks. But first, Big Dave, tell the people about the points bets, would you please?
Oh, time for commercials, Darnell. Stay tuned. Here we go. The best way to support CHGO is to download that PointsBet app and use that code CHGO when you sign up. And if you do that right now, you'll get two risk-free bets up to $2,000. But that's not it. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of that cool web content, and you'll even get a free t-shirt of your choice from that CHGO locker. That's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, a free t-shirt of your choice from that CHGO locker, all for making a $50 or more first-time deposit at PointsBet. And for the first time ever, it's the live NBA same-game parlay. You can build the perfect live NBA same-game parlay only with PointsBet by combining your favorite bets anytime during the game. And if you want more, you can also boost your live same-game parlays. You can watch live, parlay live, boost live, all with PointsBet. And if you're in this awesome state of Illinois where the weather is not bad outside right now, but you can still stay inside, and you can download that PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone, like the one Parlay Peck is holding up right there. So what are you waiting for, ladies and gentlemen? Huh? I don't know. Because once the game starts, you don't just bet. Go lead. Let them know what you do.
You live your bet life.
Oh, you do it with PointsBet. That's how you read one.
Darnell, what to you has been the biggest issue for this Bulls post All-Star break stretch where their net rating has fallen off a cliff? They have way more losses than they do wins, as you take a look at it right there. Not just that the defense stayed bad, but the offense also got bad. I mean, there's a lot that you can point to. Lonzo's absence, obviously, when you were speaking just a minute ago about the two-way players on this team, his absence has been huge. As far as Lonzo, the three-point shooting you miss, his defense certainly is missed. Zach has been battling this knee and hasn't looked like himself. DeMar's mid-range efficiency has come down. They've obviously faced a much harder schedule. What of any of those things, or something I didn't mention to you, is the biggest reason why the Bulls have dropped as many games down the stretch as they have?
I'm going to go with all of the above. you listed them all, Matt. I mean, what would you leave me to say?
Well, no, I mean, is one of them, in your opinion, like the most key problem? Which is the biggest problem?
The defense. I mean, the defense.
Okay.
They haven't really given themselves much of a chance. A lot of times because of the way they've defended inside and outside, and consistently. I mean, good teams, bad teams. You're losing to Sacramento. You're losing to New Orleans without Brandon Ingram. It's just been a shocking free fall is how I would describe it. I mean, that's what are they finished 7-15 or something like that, 8-15, 8-15. It's just not no one. I guess. I mean, Billy says he saw it coming, but I think every time he says that, he sounds bad. Like, if you saw it coming, why couldn't you do anything about it?
Right.
Yeah, like. But I just say the defense, the point of attack defense has been awful. They cannot guard the pick and roll, and basic ball movement has really crippled this team defensively to where they can't contain it, and it's leading to open 3-point shots. And then once that happens, if they miss, teams are getting second chances on offensive rebounds. So everything is going wrong, and I think the defense is the biggest.
Every time we've asked Zach about a problem over the last couple of weeks, the answer has been, if we knew the answer to that, we would have it figured out. We wouldn't be talking about it right now. What do you make of that? I mean, it seems to me like they have no idea what's going wrong and they have no idea how to fix it. Like, how is it possible that a 45, 46 win team who's heading to the playoffs is answering that way?
Could be two things. One, they don't know, or two, they know and they won't say. I kind of think that it might be a little bit of the latter. But listen, you've got the same things that has made this team successful. In some ways, are the same things that have we can see that it's clearly flawed. DeRozan's incredible run earlier in the season. You know, he was hot and everybody loved it, but then, you know, how's everyone else developing when one guy is on a roll like that? And that's not a fault of DeMar. It's just how it all played out. When the focus and the emphasis is on getting the ball to Levine and DeRozan and Vooch, how can the other players be effective? They're most effective. And so I think there could be a little bit of a trickle-down effect with players just probably not being entirely happy with how things have played out this season. And I'm curious to see how it might change going forward if they bring back this roster, in large part, because you're not just going to be able to beat these elite teams with DeMar, Zach, and Vooch, assuming all those guys are back.
Yeah. First of all, I like that flex Will threw in there when he was like, every time we ask Zach that question, you know what I mean?
That's a flex.
That's a flex, Darnell.
Yeah.
Well, I asked him a question last week, and he basically just said that exact same thing. Like, if we know the answer, it's like, what does that mean? What are you supposed to make of that?
I feel you, man.
It's weird.
Let me ask you, Darnell, did you kind of expect them to plummet, or were you shocked by how much they plummeted by losing Lonzo? Did you expect it to affect them this much after they lost Lonzo?
I didn't, and that goes all the way back to me not expecting Lonzo to have this much of an impact to begin with. I remember when he was in the rumors a long time ago, and I'm saying, Lonzo Ball? Why? I didn't realize how good Lonzo Ball was.
I remember we talked about it on our show. I remember.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been shocking, but he is really 3-point shooting. I think. I mean, Billy keeps talking about how bad they've shot the ball lately. In the second half of the season, Lonzo was shooting 42%. I mean, just kicking it out to him instead of Ayo or Kobe or, like those guys are inconsistent. Lonzo was shooting at 42%. So that would have been a big relief off DeRozan when these double teams are coming at him and Zach LaVine. And I think, that's been a big piece that they've been missing.
Billy used that phrase losing in the margins after one of their recent blowout losses, Darnell. Do you make anything of the fact that recent final stretch, not counting the JV squads between the Bulls and Wolves on Sunday night, that was a victory, but 4 straight blowout losses, 3 to the 3 of those top teams in the East, and then also to Charlotte. Did that signal to you that at some point along the line there, this team or large numbers of this team had mentally checked out? And was it just mentally checked out because we knew we punched our playoff ticket, so we're just going to check out until then, and then we'll gear back up for a playoff run? Or is there something deeper that you could tell as far as, for whatever reason, loss after loss, they got dispirited in some way, and because it's one thing to lose all of those contests, but to lose them the way they did, I think that's what has alarmed Bulls fans the most over this final couple of weeks.
Yeah, the Charlotte contest was the worst. They're not Milwaukee, they're not Boston, they're not Miami, and they didn't have much to play for, if anything to play for. So not only that, but you've got DeRozan out there, you got LaVine out there, and Vooch out there. I think all 3 of them played. It's all running together now, but if they were going to play like that, you might as well set them down and rested them. And I don't understand why they came out like that, and I don't have an answer for it.
Darnell, for Bulls fans who haven't seen Billy Donovan as much as you have, and especially in the playoffs, is there something that you can let them know about him, his coaching style when it comes to playoff basketball? Does it kind of change, his rotation shorten, things like that? Is there something you can explain to Bulls Nation about Billy Donovan in the playoffs? Yeah,
he's not much different than most coaches. I mean, he's likely going to shorten his rotation. He's going to rely on his veterans. But he's not afraid to make changes. I mean, he's not one of those coaches. I covered Scott Brooks a lot longer than I covered Billy Donovan. And Scott Brooks would not make a change in the playoffs. It would take him being down to an elimination game before he would fit Kendrick Perkins. This is the last time I covered the playoffs. Kendrick Perkins was still playing in the league. But come on, Bulls, we gotta do better, man. It feels good for this 5-year drought to be. This is my first time covering a Bulls playoff series, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the United Center is going to be like in there. But I do think he's going to rely on his veterans and then not be hesitant to make adjustments. If he sees something's not working, I think he'll give it a game, probably 2, and then he'll probably make the switch.
Breathe,
I'm
Matt.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I was the depressing one, Matt.
No,
what was
right?
that?
No,
I don't
man.
know why I thought talking with Darnell was going to lift my spirits in some way.
I don't know why either.
Because I've always known that he,
You
like
know the
me,
guy for
is a
that, Matt.
realist.
You know the guy for that.
No, we don't talk about him on this show, Darnell. We don't talk about him on this show. We got more to talk about with Darnell, but one more quick shout out to our friends at PointsBet. If you enjoy what we do here at CHGO, help us out by downloading that PointsBet app and using promo code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you getting those 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make that $50 more first-time deposit, you will get a free membership to us here at CHGO and all of our exclusive, incredible content. We've got a lot for you over the next couple of weeks as we're getting ready for this Bulls-Bucks playoff series. If you got any questions about it, email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we will help you out. And as Dave mentioned, you can now sign up online right from your phone if you live in Illinois. You can download the app right now. Register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. I am mad that we don't have any NBA games on tonight because I'm itching for it. I'm itching for a same game parlay. You know what? At least Sunday, I'll be able to throw some money on Bucks covering another spread. Is that how you? Is that how you see?
There's some playing games this week.
I guess that's true. We got some playing games before we get there.
Plenty of same game parlays coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Darnell, how do you see this series shaking out? Obviously, most people are looking at this as a one and done playoff year for the Bulls, a quick exit. Some people saying sweep. Maybe some people optimistically thinking, hey, maybe the Bulls could steal a game, maybe two. But you look at the fact that this Bucks team, when Giannis has played, is 13-0 against the Bulls, spanning since 2017. You mentioned about who the Bulls might throw out there to try and slow down Giannis. They have given the Bucks a couple of tougher fights in the first 2 matchups this season, but they haven't been able to slow down Giannis in any of them, really. Do you see any way that Billy can find something to work to the Bulls' advantage in this series to make it a series and not a 4-game sweep?
Ryan Arcidiacono is not walking through that door.
And thankfully.
I was about to say, Dave, if you didn't, I was going to say, thank God.
Yeah, you feel me?
I don't want to be disrespectful to Arch.
No. We're going to be real.
He served his time, but no, let's see. I don't think there's any way the Bulls win the series. I think they can be competitive. I think you can see some maybe close games, perhaps. But the Bucks just are too much on both ends of the floor. Like if you could defend them, you still got to be able to score on them. And that's going to be a tall task with Drew Holiday out there defending, with Giannis out there defending, Wes Matthews out there defending. Like they've got some pieces, Chris Middleton. They've got some pieces just defensively that's going to give the Bulls' best players trouble. Look how much Vooch struggled against their length last week.
Yeah,
he can't go 3 of 19. You know what I mean? So, but I do think the Bulls will. They're not going to flip the switch. They're not going to turn into this new team that we haven't seen since December or January. But I do think that they're going to raise their level of intensity, and I think they're going to be more competitive. I don't think they're going to get blown out all 4 or 5 games.
Darnell, what would you consider a successful playoff run for the Bulls? Because I think we all resigned to the fact that the Bucks are just the Bucks, the defending champ. So,
right. What
would you consider a successful playoff run for the Bulls this year?
I think you want to see some encouraging individual performances. If Ayo goes out there and shows that he's not going to back down on the playoff stage, Pat Williams does the same thing. If they move the ball and don't just rely on DeMar and Zach, and they try to get everyone involved and they actually can make some shots, and they're just competitive. If they find a way to keep it close and not get the doors blown off each game, it's a success.
Yeah, I think if you're going to look at how well the Bucks defend, you also have to flip that question as like, how do they stop DeMar. Like, I think they've had some success against him in the past, being able to get over screens and not having to switch them so that he can kind of pick who he wants to isolate against. But I think that's going to be a really tough matchup for them too. Obviously, Drew, Wes Matthews, Middleton, those are some elite defenders. But I think at this point in the season, the Bulls have seen a lot of really good defenses. And Billy has talked about, like, these are the things that, the challenges that we have to overcome to make us better. Do you buy that at all in terms of, like, it's better to see these trapping defenses? It's better to have gone through these stretches where they literally cannot make one single 3-pointer in a game. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, this is the time for them to show it. All that Billy has been talking about, this is the time to say, okay, this is what we've learned. Or they haven't learned anything. We're about to find out. Based on the results of the regular season, it's clear that they weren't either learning and being able to incorporate whatever they learned. So now is the time to actually go out there and show it.
Have you ever covered a team like this, Darnell, where they just been up so high? I mean, up to the point where they were the best team in the conference, but then to drop so low, just to finish 8-15 and, kind of sneak into, the playoffs and not to play in. Have you ever covered or been around a team that has had that dramatic of a rise and that dramatic of a fall?
Generally, I think I've seen the rise more than the fall. But the injuries, and I think I was talking to Will about this in the press room the other night, you can sort of understand it from the standpoint of the injuries, people bouncing in and out of the lineup, the schedule getting a lot tougher. Maybe there's a couple other things I'm leaving out, but it's still shocking. And it's still not the way that the Bulls wanted to end this season. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong, and including them falling to the 6th seed, and the Bucks ended up, the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks ended up in the 3rd seed. So it's I don't really have much of an answer for it other than the things that I mentioned, like the injuries and the schedule getting stronger.
Darnell, we heard Billy mention recently, after he learned that the Bulls were facing the Bucks in this first round series, that he might go back and give another look to playing Vooch and Tristan Thompson on the floor together. And I said to myself, oh, dear God, no. Our pal and contributor Mark K had this tweet yesterday upon hearing that. Offensive rating when Tristan and Vooch share the floor, 92.9. Defensive rating, 125. Net rating, -32. And the rebounding percentage isn't even at 50%. It's at 47.5. It's a small sample size of 26 minutes when those two share the floor, but the results have been awful. What did you think when we heard Billy say that? And is there any way that it won't be a disaster if those two share the floor together?
It went in one ear and out the other, honestly. And if he wants to do that, more power to him. We're going to write about it, and we're going to say it didn't make any sense. So,
we're going to write about it beforehand too, Darnell.
There you go. Yeah, that's even better. That's even better. And this is assuming that it's going to continue, like you said, small sample size. This is assuming it's going to continue to play out that way, which we have no reason to believe that it won't. And the most probably shocking part, although those are all terrible numbers, but the rebounding, I mean, you would think that they would at least be able to rebound with that lineup, and they're still not doing the one thing that they would be expected to do with that lineup. So if they're not going to do that, what's the point?
Yeah, for me, that, like I say this all the time, offensive and defensive rebounding are two different skills. Just because Tristan is big does not make him a good rebounder. And I think if you take the small sample size argument, yes, it's small, but like most of those minutes came against the Bucks. So we know what it looks like against the team that they're facing. I'm good.
So that, I mean, the question then becomes, how do you go really small ball heavy? And we've seen Billy, he loves using 3 and sometimes even 4-guard lineups. What have you made of the back end of Derrick Jones Jr. season, Darnell? Because, he came back earlier from whatever that fractured finger was than we initially expected, hashtag 6 to 8 weeks. It ended up being half of that because they decided to let him play with that splint on his non-shooting finger. but he hasn't been able to knock down shots. He does give you more versatility on the defensive end, I think, and can add some element of, lethal athleticism for the Bulls in transition offense opportunities. Tyler Cook, we saw him for the first time in forever in garbage time of a meaningless game against Minnesota, but I mean, he's one of the few guys in one of those earlier games against Milwaukee that I thought fared okay against Giannis.
Better than Tristan Thompson.
Yeah. So what do you see there as maybe Billy's other options?
Yeah, Derrick Jones, I like what he did early in the season when they had to rely on him when Vooch was out. But I just kind of don't understand the fans calling for him so much in the second half of the season. I don't know if that's Will, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more. I don't know if that's more of an indictment on some of the options that Billy has used or if it's belief in Derrick Jones Jr. I don't have as much belief in Derrick Jones Jr. Yes, he's been good in spots. I don't think he's a guy that you rely on for significant minutes. He's an athlete. He's not a skilled player, and he can give you some energy and some hustle plays, but I don't think you want to rely on him, and that's my concern with him. And I don't have a problem with how Billy has really used him. There's some times maybe he could have thrown him out there, but I don't really have much of an issue with how Billy used him in the second half.
Yeah, I think for me, I just want to see some more experimental lineups, and he has tried it a few times. At points throughout the second half of the season, but I liked what he was able to do against the Bucks, even in the first couple of matchups where he was playing more of the 5 and passing out of short roll. And, the Bulls are going to get killed on the glass against this team. I mean, they've got 2 7-footers in the starting lineup. And we know the Bulls struggle there anyway. So you may as well, at least at times, try to get in those passing lanes, get out in transition. These are things that made the Bulls good early on in the season. And I think ideally, Derrick Jones is somebody who can defend somebody like Drew Holiday or like Chris Middleton, who's a little bit shorter and smaller and use his length to bother them. Obviously, it's not going to work on Giannis. Nobody works on Giannis. But I would like to see some moments. I agree with Darnell, though, that it's not something that you can go to for like 30 minutes a game, let alone, 10 or 15.
Yeah. Darnell, is there a Bulls player that you feel needs to see this first round? Like you mentioned Pat and you mentioned Ayo and guys like that, but guys like Zach have never been there. Kobe's never been there. There are only like 4 players on this team who've actually, had like deep playoff success. So is there any player like in particular you can name that needs this playoff run?
It's Zach. It's got to be Zach. He hasn't been there. He's in, what is this now, his 7th season? Mm-hmm. That's different from Kobe. That's different from Pat. That's different from Ayo. Zach has accomplished everything that you can possibly accomplish for a guy at his skill set. He doesn't have a scoring title, but he's widely considered one of the most elite scorers in the league. He's a 2-time All-Star. He's an Olympian, a gold medalist. He's got to go out and have some postseason success. Now, it's not going to come this season, but at least this gives him the taste of it to say this is what it takes. Zach, I'm going to tell you guys, like Zach is kind of talking a lot this season like he knows what it takes, and he doesn't. He's never been there. And Billy throws him in there, and, it's kind of been kicked around that Zach doesn't like when Billy throws him in there, lumps him in there with Kobe and Ayo and Pat and these guys who haven't been there, but it's a fact.
It's a fact.
And Zach carries himself like he's on that level. Even though he might be, he hasn't proved it on this stage. So I think it's Zach, and I don't think it's close.
Mm.
Assuming that Alex Caruso is available, Darnell, and that's what we heard most recently is that, they're just let him take the last few games off to get some extra rest for that back. And then hopefully after the play-in week off also, he feels well enough to play. So assuming that Caruso is a chip that Billy has to use, how do you see Billy constructing that starting 5? And then whether it might be a 3 or 4 person bench, does he put Alex back in the starting lineup as he did for a while when he came back from the wrist injury? Is Ayo in there? I would be shocked if it's Kobe, based on, the shooting slump we've seen recently, even though he came out of it a bit at the end of that blowout to the Hornets. But Where do you see Caruso fitting in, assuming he is able to go?
My guess is that he starts him off the bench and starts Patrick Williams on Giannis. Probably tries to give the Bulls a little bit of a little bit more oomph coming off the bench with Caruso. A second unit leader to go against the Bucks and try to keep the pace and the tempo where you are comfortable. But yeah, I think it's Patrick Williams, Vooch, Rosen, Levine, Ayo.
Where do you see Kobe fitting into all of this? I think he's probably one of the more variable players on this team, where he can get super hot and potentially even like win you a game if he hits 8 threes. But he could also just float around on offense and, bleed points on defense. Where do you think he fits in against a team that you kind of have to play perfect against?
Offensively, you love what he's capable of, the potential there, and what he might be able to do in this series. But defensively, they're going to go out. They're going to go at him. They're going to attack him, and they're going to try to hunt Kobe White and just relentlessly exploit that matchup. So he's got to be ready. They've given him a lot of credit, the coaches, teammates, for his development this season defensively. Personally, I haven't seen a ton of it, but they say that he's really improved on that end. That's going to help in this series, but offensively, I really do like his potential to come off the bench and be a super scorer, a 6-man type who gets hot and kind of can keep you in a game.
So Darnell, you said it yourself, like this is like the first like kind of winning Bulls team that you've covered since you've been here. So, and you kind of mentioned like the worst moment, that Charlotte game, but what's for you was the best moment in covering this team?
At the end of this series or the end of their playoff run, I'm going to write probably something on this being the best season that I've covered. This is my 14th season as a beat writer. And this has been my favorite, and for a lot of different reasons. And I've got a lot of different memories from this season. I traveled with the team more than I ever did this season because, in past years, it just wasn't as worth it. But, one thing that really stands out is when they were in Denver and Bulls fans took over that building and gave the Rosen MVP chance. And obviously Nuggets fans they've got a whole different situation out there in Denver. But regardless, there were so many Bulls fans in the building. And even like little things, every time I get on a plane, it happened today coming back from Minneapolis, there's Bulls fans all over the flight, going to road cities, different road cities supporting the team. And again, traveling a lot more than I did in previous years. Maybe I've seen it a lot more, but it's definitely noticeable. I never saw that covering the Thunder. I didn't see a bunch of Thunder fans getting on planes every time going to road cities. Now, they were incredible fans in Oklahoma City, but I'm seeing Bulls Nation go everywhere with this team. And it's just been, strangely though, maybe because no one gave a damn about the game last night, that was the fewest Bulls fans I've seen in the building in a road city. Last night. But these little things are all like the moments that I really cherish this season.
I'm sure our sister station over there at DNVR will be glad to hear that the Bulls
fans heard that one.
Overtaking the Nuggets Stadium was one of your highlights of the season.
Oh yes,
they got the guy who will likely win MVP again this year. But hey, DeMar's the one getting the MVP chance with
future
the Bulls
Bull.
He didn't play that night. That's why he didn't play that night.
Hey Darnell,
right.
let me ask you real quick, Matt. What's it been? Have you done any hazing for our guy Will? Has there been any hazing since he's been in the building?
Hazing. Will was in this spot before me. Will should be hazing me.
It's coming, Darnell. It's coming.
Will started it.
The long con.
The long con. He played the long game. Just sit your luggage by the plane, Will. Just sit your luggage by the plane.
You can carry my Dora the Explorer backpack. Isn't that what they do?
Yeah, I gotta go get him like donuts and all kind of stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
Chipotle.
Yeah.
He likes his salads.
I'll bring you some donuts in Milwaukee.
Meantime, tell our guy Callie to take it easy on those Twitter grenades. All right, Bulls fans are. Woo! He loves pressing their buttons.
Wow.
Yeah, I
But
can't
you know
do
what?
Twitter, man.
He's spoken to truth for the back half of this season. He wasn't buying the fool's gold in the front half, and he's taking a victory lap or two right now.
But you know what? He wasn't the only one, Matt. I wrote a thing at the deadline that said what other teams did is going to backfire on the Bulls, and I got killed for it. It's like this was predictable. We kind of saw this coming, given the injuries, the schedule, and a lack of activity at the deadline, while others improved.
Last one for me, Darnell, is, I mean, it sounds like you consider this season a success. You've had a great time covering the team, and I think all things considered, when you zoom out and look at the season, it's been the best Bull season in recent memory. Do you view this as a stepping stone where they can continue this sort of growth and improvement next year and the year after throughout DeMar's contract? Or do you look at it as like, we kind of saw the best version of this team, and now since they're headed the wrong direction, they've got to like reevaluate things for the next couple of years?
Definitely room for improvement. I think they're going to have to overhaul some of what they do and how they do it. If they come back and just want to force feed DeRozan the ball, Levine, if he re-signs, that's not going to work. It's not sustainable in terms of winning at a high level. You can win 45 to 50 games in the regular season. You can beat the Washingtons and the Charlottes and those teams, but you're going to go 1-14 against the top 4 seeds of the East, and 2-21 or whatever against the top 4 teams from both sides. So I do think they need to play more of a team game. They're going to have to be healthy. Of course, this franchise just has shit luck when it comes to health. But if they can be healthy and revamp a little bit of how they do things, yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvement for this roster. I don't even think they need to go and get a major changes like they did last season. There's a lot of room for growth with what they have.
All right, Darnell, last one. Quick series prediction for you. Who wins the series and in how many games?
Bucks win the series in 5.
Oh, you're giving him the gentleman's sweep.
I'm giving them a game.
Which game, Darnell?
Bulls get game 4. I don't think they're going to want to get swept. I think they get game 4.
Does DeMar have a 50 burger in game 4?
No, but he can go for 42.
42. Very specific. I like that.
Put it on the board.
Put it
Ask
on the
me if
board.
I'm right.
We'll check back in after game 4 is over and we'll see just how close you came on that guess of 42 and a Bulls win. Darnell, we appreciate your time, man. Awesome to have you here joining us on CHGO Bulls. Everybody out there, if you aren't already, follow Darnell on Twitter for all of his great Bulls insights and coverage at Darnell Mayberry on Twitter, and subscribe to The Athletic. You can subscribe to more than one thing. You should be subscribed to CHGO. Subscribe to The Athletic as well. They have great content for Bulls fans and Chicago sports fans across the board. Darnell, sir, we appreciate you.
Keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. For Mr. Gottlieb and Mr. Big Dave Watson, Matt, saying thanks as always for listening, Bulls Nation. We will see you next time tomorrow, Tuesday, in studio. We got another episode for you. Till then, see Red, be good. Peace.